2 sentences per paragraph typesetting, pure online text, no export. I thought I was living the dream with 3 beautiful girlfriends until I discovered a hidden camera in the bedroom. It turns out that for the entire past year, I was not their lover, but rather an animal that these 3 girls took turns tearing apart. The truth is even more sickening knowing that all 3 of them are biological sisters. Morning. I was humming a little tune, rushing to the office as usual. My mind was entirely focused on the daily grind, anxious about being late. Right then, my phone gave a sudden unexpected buzz. At first, I assumed it was a friend sharing a meme or something trivial. I grumbled internally, wondering who had the time to send me videos at this hour. But when I opened the message, my eyes widened at the sender, calling me, "Brother, you are wearing the Super Mario style today. Are not you? It is so incredibly hot. Are you planning to come and rescue me? Your princess? I love it so much." The smile on my face froze in an instant. I stood there dumbfounded. I glanced down at my outfit. A gray jacket, a crisp white shirt, black trousers, and white sneakers. I even patted my pockets to make sure I was not unknowingly wearing some ridiculous gaming merchandise, but my attire was as mundane as it gets. Everything was in plain solid colors. There was not a trace of Super Mario anywhere on me. Yet, the very next second, a sudden realization hit me hard. My underwear was bright red, the Super Mario pattern. How on earth did the person on the other end know about that? This was not the first time I had received such bizarre text messages. There had been a few prior to this. All of them were sent from untraceable internet numbers. The content was chaotic and deeply unsettling. "Brother, hug me. I miss you so much. Are you missing me, too? Why are you getting so close to that woman? Do not. You know I will get angry. When I lose my mind, I can't guarantee what I might do. If you ever dare to betray me, I will tear apart everything you care about until there is nothing left but us. You hear me? I will make you regret it." Initially, I brushed them off as mere pranks. I did not pay much attention to them. However, as time went on, the messages grew increasingly frequent and the content became wildly crossing the line. That was when I woke up to the gravity of the situation. These texts were dripping with a psychotic obsession and twisted affection for me. It felt as though a pair of invisible eyes was monitoring my every move everywhere I went. For the sender to even mention the specific style of my underwear, could they have planted a hidden camera in my room? After all, I had changed my clothes right inside my bedroom. There was zero possibility of anyone seeing it from the outside. The moment the thought crossed my mind, a profound chill ran down my spine, leaving me entirely horrified. I instinctively hugged my arms, rubbing the goosebumps that had erupted all over my skin as I threw a paranoid glance over my shoulder. It was as if a malicious gaze was perpetually fixed upon me. I felt utterly lost and disoriented. I had zero clues to work with. I had no idea who this stalker could possibly be. For now, I had to suppress my chaotic thoughts and walk into the company building. I had barely settled into my cubicle when Leo Shermoya summoned me for a meeting. She and I graduated from the exact same university. She was 3 years my senior and a former campus beauty queen. Her features were strikingly radiant, accompanied by an extraordinary aura. She had delicate, flawlessly sculpted facial features. Her skin was as pale and pristine as fresh snow. She boasted a tall, elegant figure with a slender waist and silky long hair cascading down her back. She exuded a perfect blend of professional competence and gentle charm. Her sheer presence could silence a chaotic boardroom, commanding respect without ever having to raise her voice, for she was so remarkably outstanding. Numerous male colleagues openly vied for her attention. Yet they all met with her polite, tactful rejections. Even the female staff adored her. This was not merely due to her stunning appearance, but also her mild, kind, and approachable personality. My department gathered together in the conference room. Leo Shermoya began her presentation. Everyone was listening with rapt attention, myself included, until my phone vibrated faintly in my pocket. I discreetly tapped the screen. It was another message. "Brother, stop looking at other women. You can only have me in your heart." Just 1 second later, as if the sender was growing impatient, the screen lit up again, blinding me slightly in the dimly lit conference room. As the text popped up like a threat, another message arrived. "If you look at another woman again, I will gouge your eyes out." A jolt of panic struck my heart. I hastily scanned the room. There were indeed 2 surveillance cameras mounted in the corners of the conference room. But who on earth was this person? How could they possibly have access to the company's internal security feeds? Or hell, were they sitting right here among us? My mind spiraled into utter chaos. I could not form a coherent guess. I mentally filtered through every single person in the room filled with suspicion. Once the meeting concluded, Lu Charamoya asked me to stay behind to discuss a project. She softly inquired, "Fanjin, are you in a bad mood today?" Her gentle eyes searched my face, trying to read the sudden tension that was radiating off my stiff posture. I quickly straightened my posture, forcing myself to perk up. I replied to Boss Lu. "I'm sorry about that." She leaned in slightly closer to me and murmured, "Do not be such a stranger with me in front of others. You call me Boss Lu, but when it is just the two of us, just calling me Cher Moya or Moya is fine." Following that, she flashed me a warm, considerate smile. A wave of warmth washed over my chest. I returned her smile instinctively. However, merely a few seconds later, my phone vibrated again. "Baby, if you smile at that again, I will ensure you suffer a gruesome death. I will drag you down into the darkest abyss where no one will ever find your remains. Mark my words." My heart violently sank. That is what you get for flirting with the boss in a thriller, buddy. The sinister sensation of being watched crawled up my spine like a venomous snake. I took a deep, shaky breath. I slowly placed my phone face down on the table. Leo Shermoya cast an inquisitive look my way. "Did you get into a fight with your girlfriend?" I adjusted my demeanor and replied, "No, Boss Lu, let me report the detailed progress to you." For the remainder of the discussion, I tried my hardest to focus, but that suffocating feeling of being surveilled lingered persistently. It made me feel like I was sitting on pins and needles. I had zero motivation to work for the rest of the day. The recent surge of text messages had become alarmingly frequent. It fueled an escalating terror deep inside my soul. Who in the world could it be? Someone with the ability to hack the company's surveillance system. It had to be someone with high clearance or a genius who bypassed our firewalls without triggering a single alarm. Could it be a rogue security guard and administration? Or perhaps during the meeting that Psycho had secretly installed a personal camera somewhere? That was a grim possibility. Moreover, they had managed to plant a camera right in my bedroom. When exactly did they install it? I had been renting this apartment for an entire year. Was it already there before I moved in? The landlady, but my memory pictured a woman in her 60s. It was obviously not her. After clocking out, I hurried out of the office building. My mind was a tangled mess of paranoia. As soon as I reached the ground floor, another text assaulted my screen. "Brother, I know exactly what you are thinking about. You are racking your brain, looking at every shadow, wondering who is pulling the strings in the dark. Are not you? You want to know who I am? I am right by your side." I clenched my fists tightly. The minute I got home, I inspected my room thoroughly at a glance. Everything seemed normal inside. There were no signs of anyone rummaging through my belongings, nor were there any noticeable anomalies. I searched every nook and cranny from ceiling to floor. Yet, I failed to locate any hidden camera. I was so anxious, I wanted to tear the walls down, left with no other options. I called a professional tech company. I hired them to sweep my bedroom for devices. After a rigorous scan, they confirmed there was no surveillance equipment. I suddenly realized my entire line of thinking might be flawed. I slapped my forehead, frustrated by my own narrow-mindedness. I realized the threat might not even be inside the house at all. Perhaps the person was holding a pair of binoculars, spying into my bedroom through the window from the building opposite mine. I walked into the living room, observing my surroundings. Suddenly, I remembered the underwear I hung on the balcony last night. I was usually quite lazy on workdays. I made a habit of changing into a fresh pair daily. Then, I would gather all 7 pairs to wash them together on the weekend. I had planned to let them air out overnight and collect them in the morning since there was not a drying rack in my bedroom and my roommate was a girl. I did not want things to be awkward when we bumped into each other. I sprinted to the balcony to retrieve my laundry only to realize something was terribly amiss. I counted them over and over, but there were only 6 pairs. One was missing. My breath hitched as a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Realizing the stalker had breached my actual living space while I was asleep, I knew in my gut someone had stolen it. The person with the easiest access to the living room to snatch my underwear was none other than my roommate Bis Salek. Yet picturing Bis Salek's aloof and flawless demeanor, I found the idea highly improbable. She had an icy, detached countenance. Her facial features were exquisitely refined and impeccable. Her brows and eyes exuded a chilling aloofness that kept people miles away. Her skin was incredibly fair. Her face was as picturesque as a painting. She was like a blinding ray of winter sunshine, coldly, glamorous, and dazzling. Why would an ice queen like her steal my underwear? She was the legendary beauty of our major, the ultimate goddess in the eyes of every guy on campus. Whenever she walked through the courtyard, conversations would halt and heads would turn just to catch a glimpse of her ethereal grace. Truth be told, it was quite baffling. Someone as beautiful as Bisac, who also happened to be the eldest daughter of the wealthiest family in the city. The B family held a prestigious status in the capital. Their wealth was on a scale ordinary people could only dream of. Logically speaking, given her background and pedigree, she should have returned to her massive family mansion after graduation, to bask in a carefree life of luxury as a rich heiress, but shockingly, she chose to rent a humble apartment with me. It was genuinely beyond comprehension. Clutching the pile of underwear, I made my way toward my room. Right at that moment, I heard Bis Salak opening the front door. She had just returned from work, wearing a sharp gray professional suit. The tailoring hugged her perfectly, accentuating the graceful curves of her waist. It highlighted the elegant posture that always made her look like she was walking down a runway. Beneath the gray skirt, a pair of pale jade-like legs was exposed, slender, and utterly captivating. She stood by the entrance and cast a brief glance my way. Without saying a word, I could feel her gaze sweep over me. Then she swiftly averted her eyes. I could not help but observe her stealthily. She seemed to notice, and her expression instantly became unnatural. A faint blush crept up her cheeks. She hurriedly shifted her line of sight while changing her shoes. Her foot slipped. She heavily plopped down onto the small stool. Could it really be her? I carried my laundry back into my bedroom. My mind was entirely consumed by that fleeting moment. I kept replaying the slight tremble in her hands and the way her usually icy composure had shattered into nervous fragments by Salak's expression, her evident panic, her awkward demeanor. All of this filled my heart with doubt. Oh, please. You are just projecting because she is out of your league. While I was sitting in my bedroom, letting my imagination run wild, a knock sounded on my bedroom door. Who is it? I asked, knowing full well who it was. Bis's voice remained as cool as ever. It is me. I brought some food from home today. Let us eat together. Even though her words sounded caring, they carried an undertone that refused to be rejected. I pushed the door open. I obediently took a seat at the dining table. As I scarfed down huge mouthfuls of rice, I kept shooting covert glances at her. I tried to decipher if there was any hidden malice behind her pristine, flawless exterior. I pretended to remark casually. There seemed to be more and more thieves around lately. Bis Salak continued eating her meal with utmost elegance. Her movements were unhurried and graceful. She gave a nonchalant hum in response. I probed further. Have you lost anything? She remained silent. I added, I noticed I am missing some clothes. I paid close attention to her facial expression as I finished speaking. I lost some clothes, too. Probably some creep roaming around. She did not even lift her head, continuing to look down at her food. Her expression was as aloof and unbothered as always. The calm way she chewed her vegetables made me feel like an idiot for even trying to play detective with her. I discreetly withdrew my gaze, secretly mocking myself for actually suspecting Bis Salak of being an underwear-stealing pervert. She was so frigid and noble. How could she stoop to such a disgraceful act, even though we were roommates, seeing each other constantly day in and day out? She had never even looked at me squarely, let alone stalk me like the person in those text messages, screaming brother all day and aggressively demanding hugs. Someone like Bislak was incapable of such madness. Right in the middle of our meal, my phone buzzed aggressively. A terrifying text message popped onto the screen. The stark white letters on the bright screen felt like a physical blow to my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. Why are you having a meal with another woman? Do not you know how much that breaks my heart? That sinister tone felt as if it were crawling out of the deepest shadows. It sent shivers violently down my spine. Our seats at the table faced the large living room window directly. I stared out into the pitch-black night. The darkness was as thick as ink. Only the illuminated windows of the opposite building pierced through the gloom. Was the sender currently hiding in that building across the street? Spying on every detail inside our apartment with binoculars? After work the following day, I went out for a gathering at a restaurant near the company with some colleagues. We sat around a large table filled with laughter and cheerful banter, sharing amusing anecdotes from our jobs and daily lives. I temporarily managed to forget the exhaustion and terror of the day. The clinking of beer glasses and the warm aroma of sizzling dishes finally made me feel like a normal human being again. By the time the dinner ended and I returned to my neighborhood, it was already 10 p.m. The night was incredibly dense, only scattered, dim lights flickered in the distance. I strolled along at a leisurely pace, enjoying the rare tranquility of the evening. The residential complex was deadly quiet, except for the gentle breeze rustling the leaves, creating a soft swishing sound. Suddenly, I noticed someone on a bench under a large tree nearby. A slender silhouette was sitting there in the dark. The person had their hair draped loosely over their shoulders, wearing a pure white dress. "You are finally back." The voice rang out abruptly, carrying a heavy trace of sorrow and resentment. It scared the living daylights out of me. My heart did a violent backflip, and I nearly tripped over my own feet, trying to scramble backward away from the ghostly figure. I squinted hard to recognize the person. To my surprise, it was Shin Kawano. Shin Kawano stood up slowly, tilting her head up slightly. Her eyes were brimming with eager anticipation and undeniable grievance. "It is me, Senior. Where did you go? Why did you come back so late?" I let out a massive sigh of relief. I explained to her that I was working overtime. Shin Kawano was my junior from university. She had just graduated this year and coincidentally lived in the building directly opposite mine. She had an incredibly sweet and adorable appearance. Her figure was wonderfully petite with soft fair skin. She looked like a delicate porcelain doll that could break at the slightest touch, always radiating an innocent, helpless vibe. Her eyes were huge and sparkling bright. I was fully aware that she harbored feelings for me. Back in college, when I joined the roller skating club, she followed suit. When I participated in the choir, she tagged along as well. Even with renting this apartment, she purposely chose a place close by. Now that we live near each other, she always found excuses to stick around me, but I solely saw her as a younger sister, nothing more than a pure platonic sisterly bond. I did not have a single romantic thought about her. Shin Kawano pouted, her lips pursed aggressively, sounding noticeably wronged. She complained, "I saw you having dinner with your female colleagues today. You were smiling at them so happily. Have you developed feelings for someone else?" I frantically rushed to clarify. "No, not at all." I waved my hands defensively, trying to shut down her wild assumptions before she started crying right there in the dark. "We are merely ordinary coworkers. It was just a casual team dinner, nothing more." "All right, I choose to believe you, but if you ever dare to like other girls, I will never talk to you again." Classic pick-me-girl manipulation tactic. Red flags everywhere. Although Shin Kawano's tone was incredibly soft, it undeniably carried a subtle edge of a threat. I looked at her earnestly, feeling somewhat helpless, but unwilling to crush her feelings. I could only comfort her. "Do not worry. Rest assured. If there is any update on my love life, you will be the first to know." Shin Kawano's expression shifted from gloom to joy. She began walking shoulder to shoulder with me. I could not help but ponder internally. Could it be Shin Kawano? She practically lived right across the street. If she stood on her balcony with the right equipment, my entire living space would be a live theater for her viewing pleasure. Our apartments were on the exact same floor. If she grabbed a pair of binoculars, it was highly probable she could view my bedroom. But she normally looked so innocent and sweet. Would she really be capable of such disturbing acts? I immediately shook my head in denial, deeming it a highly unlikely scenario. Early Saturday morning, the bright sunlight spilled across the wooden floorboards through the sheer curtains. I stretched my body lazily, deciding to invite some friends to the basketball court to blow off some steam. By the time I arrived at the indoor court, it was already bustling with intense energy. The rhythmic thumping of basketballs against the polished wood combined with the energetic shouts of players blended into a lively symphony. My friends and I swiftly changed into our athletic gear. We did a quick warm-up drill, eager to burn off the lingering stress of the horrific week I just endured. We threw ourselves entirely into the fierce competition. "Well, that girl over there is stunningly gorgeous. How can I score her contact info?" Hearing these exclamations from my buddies, I followed their gaze and realized it was none other than Lou Charamoya. She was dressed in stylish workout attire, wearing a tight black tank top paired with fitted athletic shorts, flaunting her breathtaking curves flawlessly. It caught the attention of practically every guy in the vicinity. She seemed completely oblivious to the stairs, casually sitting in the rest area, watching our game with deep interest. I chose not to tell my friends about her real identity. After all, she was my direct supervisor. Telling them she was my boss would only lead to a barrage of annoying questions and crude jokes that I really did not want to deal with right now. It was vastly better to keep my distance and stay out of trouble. As I continued to play, I inadvertently glanced back, only to find that Lu Charamoya seemed to have her eyes fixed solely on me. Her gaze felt surprisingly intense, almost feverish. I silently shook my head to snap out of it, convinced it was just a figment of my imagination. We played until the evening. The stadium lights gradually dimmed as people trickled out. I walked home alone in the tranquil dusk. The cool evening breeze against my sweat-drenched skin brought a refreshing chill. My body was thoroughly exhausted. Yet, I felt a deeply fulfilling sense of satisfaction. Out of nowhere, my phone vibrated vigorously. I pulled it out of my pocket to check. The message on the glowing screen made me freeze in my tracks. Brother. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling slightly as I forced myself to read the twisted words sent from that godforsaken number. The water you left behind tastes incredibly sweet. It was that spine-chilling tone again. My heart plunged violently into my stomach. An icy dread spread rapidly through my entire body. I desperately racked my brain for details from the basketball court. While playing, I had indeed placed a bottle of mineral water on the sidelines. I had not noticed anyone tampering with it at the time. I took a few sips and immediately threw myself back into the match. I did not drink from it again until it was time to leave. Did someone sneakily exploit my lack of attention to drink the remaining water from my bottle? Who could have done that? Was it Lu Charamoya? The spot she had occupied was in close proximity to where I left my drink. But she only stayed for a short while before leaving, and I highly doubted a poised corporate executive would stoop to the level of stealing a sweaty guy's half-drank water bottle. Later on, a lot of people came and went. It could have been literally anyone passing by. Did that mysterious stalker secretly tail me all the way to the court and actually drank my leftover water? The more I analyzed it, the more unsettled I became. The more I thought about it, the more terrified I felt. This suffocating sense of being monitored. This relentless feeling of being hunted made me unbearably anxious. I hastened my pace and bolted toward my apartment. That night, just as I was about to turn off the lamp to sleep, my phone buzzed multiple times in quick succession. I picked it up to take a look. A barrage of unread messages flooded the screen. Every single one of them sent my heart rate skyrocketing, making my scalp tingle with pure horror. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, praying it was just a nightmare, but the harsh glare of the screen proved my torment was painfully real. Brother, give me a kiss before you go to sleep. Okay, brother. I want you to wrap your arms around my waist while sleeping. Do not worry. It is very slender and soft. You are not allowed to think about anyone else except me. Otherwise, you will face a gruesome end. These sick messages plunged me into an abyss of extreme anxiety. It truly felt as though invisible, malicious eyes were staring right at me from the engulfing darkness. I hastily powered off my phone, yanking the heavy blanket over my head to hide, desperately attempting to calm my frayed nerves. Yet, those terrifying words crawled through my mind like venomous centipedes, wreaking absolute havoc on my sanity, agitating me so much that finding peace was impossible. While I was striving to force my muscles to relax, I heard a faint, unidentifiable creak from the corner of the room that made me stop breathing altogether for a solid 10 seconds. I abruptly remembered that the curtains were left open. The distant amber glow of the streetlight slipped through the gap. It blended with the pale moonlight to cast long shadows into the room, making the entire space look exceptionally eerie. I scrambled out of bed in a sheer panic, rushing toward the window with frantic steps. I forcefully yanked the curtains shut. Then I crawled back into bed, trying to drift into slumber. But right at that very moment, my phone rang out loud. This time, it was an incoming phone call. I hesitated for a brief moment before finally picking it up. It was Shin Kawano. Hello, senior. Are you busy with anything tomorrow? How about we hang out together? Her voice was bubbly and light, most standing in stark, terrifying contrast to the dark paranoia currently swallowing me alive. On the other end of the line, Shin Kawano's tone was brimming with excitement. I casually fabricated an excuse on the spot. Shin Kawano, I have been feeling quite exhausted recently. I just want to stay at home and rest this weekend. Shin Kawano's voice immediately adopted a resentful edge. Senior, you are lying to me. Does going out to play basketball with friends count as resting at home? A massive shock wave hit my chest. How on earth did Shin Kawano know I went to play basketball today? Did she actually show up at the venue, too? Was she the twisted sender behind all those messages? Countless theories flashed through my brain at lightning speed, but I quickly reeled myself in, realizing I could not jump to conclusions prematurely. Perhaps Shin Kawano merely bumped into me playing basketball by pure chance. The person sending the horrific texts might still be someone else. I took a deep breath, forcing a calm smile into my voice, so I would not alert her to the sheer panic seizing my throat. All right, fine, Shin Kawano. I will accompany you tomorrow. You pick the destination. Shin Kawano erupted into cheers on the other end of the line. Her voice was overflowing with sheer delight. That is wonderful, senior. Then let us go to the amusement park tomorrow. Saying that, she hung up the phone. I placed my phone down and stared at the ceiling in the dark. My heart remained in a state of turmoil for a long time. She hung up fast so you would not hear her evil villain laugh in the background. I knew that by hanging out with Shin Kawano tomorrow, that psychotic stalker would undeniably follow my tracks. I could no longer sit around and wait for my doom. I had to seize the initiative and unmask the true identity of this creep. I clenched the bedsheets in my fists, resolving that tomorrow would be the day the hunter finally became the hunted. Who exactly was spying on me from the shadows, sending these blood-curdling messages day in and day out? I refused to let this terror consume my life any longer. I swore to myself that tomorrow I would uncover the chilling truth. Standing at the grand entrance of the amusement park, sunlight filtered through the ornate structure of the carousel, casting a dazzling array of colorful shadows across the pavement. Shin Kawano stood closely by my side. Her face was blooming with an ecstatic, radiant smile. Her eyes were shimmering with intense excitement. She wore a lovely pastel yellow dress. Her hair was styled into two cute braided pigtails, looking precisely like a little princess stepping out of a fairy tale. Senior, let us ride the carousel first. Shin Kawano grabbed my hand firmly. Her skin was warm, but her grip was surprisingly tight, dragging me forward before I even had the chance to utter a word of agreement. She excitedly pointed at the nearby amusement ride. We waited in line and eventually climbed onto the carousel horses. Shin Kawano gripped the saddle tightly with both hands. Her face was a portrait of pure thrill. The cheerful carnival music began to play loudly. The grand carousel slowly began its rotation, although a polite smile was plastered on my face. My inner state was anything but calm. I was secretly scanning the perimeter with razor-sharp focus, searching aggressively for any suspicious individuals. That female stalker would undoubtedly be tailing me today. Perhaps she was lurking somewhere within this very crowd right now. Yet, after surveying the area for an extended period, I turned up empty-handed. I failed to spot a single suspicious person. As the carousel finally came to a halt, I stepped down gracefully, helping her off the ride while my eyes continued darting nervously behind every colorful tent and food stall. I asked Shin Kawano if she was feeling thirsty. She nodded earnestly. Shin Kawano, what flavor of drink do you prefer? I asked in an artificially casual tone. Shin Kawano tilted her head. Her eyes were playful. I will just have whatever you are having, senior. I nodded and said, but I only drink mineral water. I know that. Her tone carried a hint of confidence. Oh, really? Then do you know what brand I prefer? I continued to press her. Shin Kawano answered without hesitation. Of course, Nongfu Spring, right? She lifted her chin slightly, looking a bit smug. I maintained a smile on the surface, but internally, I began to overthink. Could it really be Shin Kawano? Was she the deranged girl who drank my leftover water yesterday? Shin Kawano actually knew my preference for Nongfu Spring. Did she steal a sip of it? I casually chatted with her. Shin Kawano, what were you up to yesterday? Me? Of course I went to. Her voice wavered for a fraction of a second, her eyes darting to the side as she struggled to maintain her bubbly facade. She paused abruptly. I stayed at home. I knew she was lying. Did she actually go to the basketball court? While my mind was wandering, Shin Kawano placed a small, delicate gift box in front of me. Her eyes sparkled. This is for you, senior. I opened it to take a look. It was an exquisitely handcrafted bracelet. You are giving this to me. I hesitated for a moment. Shin Kawano nodded eagerly. Yeah, today marks the third anniversary of us meeting. I spent the whole day yesterday weaving this at home. It even made my hands ache, saying that. She held out her hand. The tips of her slender fingers were indeed slightly red and peeling. It seemed she truly was at home yesterday. I let out a silent sigh of relief, feeling guilty for doubting her sweet, innocent gesture. That brief pause earlier might have just been her trying to keep the surprise a secret. I breathed the sigh of relief. Shin Kawano was so innocent. She could not possibly be that twisted person. Thank you, I said softly. Shin Kawano grabbed my hand. Her bright eyes were full of anticipation. Senior, if you want to thank me, you should treat me to some ice cream. With that, she pulled me toward the ice cream stand. She picked out a double-scooped chocolate cone. She took a bite, then brought the ice cream right up to my mouth. Senior, have a taste. It is delicious. Before I could even react, she pressed the ice cream against my lips. I had no choice but to take a small bite. Right then, my phone buzzed. I opened it and looked. The chill from the ice cream in my mouth vanished, replaced by a freezing dread that shot straight into my veins. That single text message instantly turned my entire body stiff. Baby, do you have a death wish? Why are you eating food that another woman has already bitten into? My heart sank violently. That psycho was indeed somewhere nearby. I frantically scanned my surroundings, but the area was swarming with a massive crowd. It was impossible to pinpoint anyone suspicious. I turned my head back, looking at Shin Kawano, who was happily licking her ice cream. Her face displayed an entirely pure, innocent smile. Brother, what is wrong? Shin Kawano noticed my expression and asked out of concern. I forced a stiff smile. It is nothing. Shin Kawano nodded and continued dragging me around the amusement park. We also rode the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster. Shin Kawano remained in high spirits the entire time. Her laughter never ceased. By the time we got back home, it was already evening. I pushed the door open and saw Bis Salak sitting on the living room sofa reading a book. Her posture was incredibly elegant. The soft glow of the reading lamp cast a warm halo around her, making her look like an untouchable goddess descending into this mundane apartment. Her slender fingers gently held the pages. She was as beautiful as a painting. Noticing me walk in, she lifted her head. Her tone was frosty. Had a fun time playing outside today. Yet, I managed to detect a faint trace of mockery and resentment in her words. Yeah, it was all right. Right after saying that, I froze in my tracks. How did Bis Salak know I went out to play? Was she the one following me? I feigned nonchalance and asked, how did you know I went out to have fun? She kept her eyes glued to the book without even raising her head, just looking at that spring breeze on your face. Anyone could guess. Bis Salak replied without looking up, giving a cold, detached response. Her tone made it seem like my trivial affairs were hardly worth her attention. I silently pursed my lips, muttering internally that I was just overthinking things again. Her disdain for me was so deeply ingrained that she would not even spare me a glance if I were on fire, let alone stalk me. Bis Salak usually ignored me on a daily basis anyway. Why would she ever bother tracking my movements? So, I quietly turned around and went back to my own bedroom. After work the next day, I specifically took a detour to the fresh market and carefully selected a few crisp vegetables. Last time, Bis Salak brought food for me to eat. Courtesy demands reciprocity. I had to return the favor at our apartment. As soon as I entered the house, I dove straight into the kitchen and got busy. While I was cooking, I kept feeling a gaze sweeping over me from time to time. Glancing up, I saw Bis Salak sitting in the living room. Her line of sight seemed to drift toward me intermittently. Looks like someone is enjoying the free cooking show. I was not sure if it was just my illusion. After putting in quite a bit of effort, I brought the final dish to the dining table. Bis Salak walked over slowly. Her gaze swept across the table full of dishes. Her icy demeanor cracked just a fraction, revealing a hint of genuine surprise at my culinary skills. She slightly raised her eyebrows and asked, "Why such a lavish spread?" I smiled and handed her a pair of chopsticks. Explaining, "You treated me to a meal before, so I have to return the hospitality. Try this braised pork. I just learned how to make it." She took the chopsticks, picked up a small piece of meat, and elegantly placed it into her mouth. After chewing slowly for a moment, she gave a subtle nod, evaluating, "It is not bad." Hearing that, I let out a sigh of relief and felt a tiny surge of pride. During the meal, the surroundings were utterly quiet. Only the clinking of chopsticks against plates produced a crisp, clear sound. I could not resist secretly observing Bis Salak. She had her head lowered, eating with immense focus. That inherent coldness still lingered between her brows, but there was also an added layer of concentration. The overhead lights cascaded down. The soft illumination made her usually sharp edges look incredibly delicate, almost vulnerable in the quiet solitude of the dining room. It highlighted the exquisite, refined profile of her face. In this fleeting instance, her beauty felt somewhat surreal. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I instinctively pulled it out and the text on the screen instantly made my heart constrict. "Brother, why are you personally cooking for her? You are sharing food from the same plate as her. Are you trying to kiss her? Do you not love me anymore? Why are you having a change of heart?" I took a deep breath, struggling to force myself to stay calm. Bis Salak seemed to notice my unusual reaction. She raised her head and stared straight at me and asked, "What is wrong?" I frantically placed my phone face down on the table, putting on a facade of composure to cover it up. My voice cracked slightly, betraying the sheer terror that was currently threatening to tear my calm mask apart. "It is nothing, just some spam messages." I lied. Bis Salak did not push the matter further. She merely gave a faint and resumed eating. But from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse. For a split second, a dark shadowy glint flashed through her eyes, fading as quickly as it appeared. After cleaning up post-dinner, I walked into the bathroom to prepare for a shower. The moment I turned on the faucet, I noticed something was off. My body wash was depleting way too fast. I remembered opening this new bottle just at the start of the month. Only a little over 10 days had passed, and it was already hitting the bottom. Suspicion began to brew in my mind. Was someone secretly using my body wash? The silhouette of that psychotic stalker instantly flashed through my mind. Even though we were renting a 2-bedroom apartment, each bedroom came with its own ensuite bathroom. That was precisely why I chose this place to begin with. Logically, there should be no scenario where roommates shared body wash. Standing under the shower head with warm water cascading down my body. The hot steam rising around me felt suffocating, making me feel as though someone was standing right outside the frosted glass door watching. Yet, a chilling sensation crept up my spine. I alertly looked up and thoroughly inspected the bathroom. Thankfully, after a rigorous check, I found no hidden cameras. Only then did I slowly let my guard down, comforting myself that I was probably just being paranoid. When I arrived at the company on Monday, Lou Chermoya called me to the conference room to discuss a project. Upon entering the room, it was just the two of us inside. She sat extremely close to me. I could distinctly smell the fragrance emanating from her. It was a blend of lemon and sandalwood, unquestionably the scent of a men's body wash. My heart skipped a beat. Was not this the exact scent of my own body wash? Could it be Fong Yuzu? "What are you thinking about?" Lou Chermoya's smiling voice interrupted my train of thought. I snapped back to reality and hurriedly replied, "It is nothing, Boss Lou. I just thought I smelled a nice shampoo scent." Lou Chermoya took a deep breath. She closed her eyes softly, letting out a satisfied sigh, as if she were deeply savoring the aroma hanging in the air between us. An expression of intoxication and infatuation surfaced on her face. She said, "I actually quite like this scent. I just used it last night." I felt rather awkward. I had no idea how to respond to that. "Right." Then she suddenly chuckled, explaining, "It is the toiletry set from the company's team building event, the one we won during the mini-games. You have some too, right? Even though it is designed for men, I find it quite pleasant to use." It suddenly dawned on me. So that was the whole story. I silently scolded myself in my head. Someone as wonderful as Lou Chermoya could not possibly be that deranged stalker. Once our project discussion concluded, I was just about to leave. Lou Chermoya informed me of a business trip next week. Accompanying us, aside from her and me, was another female colleague. After arriving at the hotel and having dinner, I headed to the lounge chairs by the pool to relax. The afterglow of the setting sun spilled across the water's surface, shimmering brightly, resembling a vast golden ocean. A graceful figure came into view. It was Lou Chermoya. She was wearing a blue swimsuit. Her posture was incredibly elegant. After walking to the pool's edge and doing some warm-up stretches, she dived gracefully into the water, swimming back and forth like an agile mermaid. I was just planning to get up and leave when I noticed something was suddenly wrong with Lou Chermoya in the water. Plot twist. She is faking it to get CPR. She lost her balance and began thrashing around desperately. She looked in my direction, shouting loudly for help. "Fong Yuzu, help me." I sprinted over hastily, seeing her face contorted in pain. She cried out, "My leg is cramping." I quickly jumped into the pool and scooped her into my arms, swimming back to the edge. I placed her on a lounge chair and handed her a bath towel. Right at that very moment, my phone buzzed. I opened it to check. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not from the physical exertion of saving my boss, but from the terrifying realization that I was never alone. My brows instantly furrowed deeply. The text message read, "Brother, how dare you hold another woman? I am going to kill her. Have you forgotten my warnings? Why are you pressing your skin against another woman's? Are you tired of living?" Seeing my troubled expression, Lu Cheramoya asked in a low voice, "Fong Yuzu, what is the matter?" I shook my head and replied, "Boss Lu, it is nothing." But Lu Cheramoya was relentless, pressing further. "Fong Yuzu, I am your senior from university, your boss, and more importantly, your friend. Since I brought you out here on this trip, I am responsible for your well-being. Tell me the truth. What exactly is going on?" Meeting her deeply concerned gaze, I hesitated. I realized that keeping her in the dark might actually put her in far more grave danger than she could possibly handle. Recalling the brutal threats in the text messages, I felt it was necessary to warn her, so I handed my phone over to her, saying, "Boss Lu, this creep has been constantly sending me these bizarre messages. Please be careful. I honestly do not know if they will actually do something crazy." A look of genuine worry washed over Lu Cheramoya's face. She asked, "How long has this been going on?" I replied, "For quite a while now." Her tone carried a hint of reproach. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? If you are in trouble, I can help you solve it, Fong Yuzu. Trust me, I will definitely help you track this person down." I looked at her. My heart was brimming with immense gratitude. "Boss Lu, thank you." She smiled softly, standing up and wrapping the towel tightly around herself. She said, "Let us go." She patted my shoulder reassuringly, her calm and collected demeanor giving me a sudden anchor in the storm of insanity. "We will head back to the room first and figure out a proper plan." The following day, upon seeing me, Lu Cheramoya asked quietly, "Fong Yuzu, do you have any suspicions about who it might be?" I answered, "Yeah, I do." She pressed curiously, "Who is it?" I felt a bit embarrassed. After all, I had even suspected her at one point, so I gave a vague answer. "Actually, no. I am not certain who it is." Lu Cheramoya sighed and said, "I understand how you feel. Being constantly watched is a terrible feeling, but right now, we need to stay calm and carefully devise a countermeasure." I nodded in agreement. Lu Cheramoya fell silent for a moment. She raised her head and suggested, "Fong Yuzu, maybe we can set a trap to lure them out." I asked her, "Boss Lu, what exactly do you have in mind?" Lu Cheramoya got up and walked over to the window. She crossed her arms, her silhouette framed beautifully against the neon lights, looking every bit the sharp tactician she was in the boardroom. Gazing out at the city's night view, she proposed, "We can pretend to be a couple and observe their reaction. If she truly is obsessed with you, she surely won't be able to hold herself back." I nodded, agreeing with her plan. "All right." Once we wrapped up our work, Lu Cheramoya and I headed to a cafe together. After ordering 2 cups of coffee, we deliberately chose a window seat to sit and chat. Lu Cheramoya thoughtfully added sugar to my coffee. While talking to me, her eyes were crinkling with sweet laughter. In that specific moment, we genuinely looked like 2 lovers, deeply engulfed in passion. As I conversed with her, I stealthily observed our surroundings. Sure enough, I received a text message very quickly. "Brother, why are you drinking coffee with another woman? You are only allowed to drink coffee with me. Everything about you belongs to me. Stay away from that woman. She is an utter lunatic. Her web of lies is thicker than you realize. And if you get caught in it, I won't be able to save you from her madness. Do not let her deceive you. You love drinking coffee, do you? Why do not you try drinking blood instead? I will drain her blood for you to drink. How does that sound?" I swept my gaze across the cafe. There were not many people around, and I did not spot anyone suspicious. We sat there for another whole hour, ultimately yielding 0 results. I was filled with immense guilt, feeling like I had just wasted Lu Cheramoya's precious time. Yet, she maintained a continuous smile, seeming to genuinely enjoy the time spent alone with me. After wrapping up the 2-day business trip during the twilight hours, I dragged my thoroughly exhausted body back home. Stepping into my bedroom, I collapsed face first onto the bed and drifted into a deep slumber almost instantly. In the middle of the night, I was abruptly jolted awake by a profound, inexplicable sense of dread. In my groggy state, I saw a blurred silhouette standing by my bed. My heart stalled in my chest as I tried to blink away the sleep, praying it was just sleep paralysis playing tricks on my tired brain. The figure looked exceptionally ghostly and eerie in the pitch-black room. I was instantly startled out of my wits. My body instinctively recoiled, breaking out in a cold, terrified sweat. Did that stalker actually break into my bedroom? Home security really is just a suggestion in this apartment. What on earth did she want at this ungodly hour? I widened my eyes in pure terror, struggling to make out who it was. Once my vision cleared and I realized the intruder was Stalked, I could not help but exclaim, "Stalked, what are you doing in my bedroom?" Stalked's expression remained as frosty as ever, showing no trace of panic whatsoever. She quietly placed a damp towel on my forehead and said in a calm, slightly lazy voice, "You have a fever. I am here to take care of you." I subconsciously reached up to touch my forehead. It was burning hot. My entire body felt weak and limber. I could not muster an ounce of strength. I let out a heavy sigh of relief and lay back down on the bed. I kept staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how the coldest person in the apartment suddenly became my midnight nurse. But internally, my confusion only multiplied. Although we were roommates, we slept in entirely separate bedrooms. How could she possibly know I was running a fever in the dead of night, and even come all the way into my room? Could it be that she was the one relentlessly monitoring and secretly spying on me all along? She seemed to effortlessly see right through my thoughts. She spoke softly, "Stop making wild guesses. I got up to use the bathroom and noticed your room had its lights on, so I came in to check. I did not expect you to be sick." I mumbled to myself. My heart calmed down just a fraction. Perhaps I was just too exhausted last night and forgot to switch off the light before crashing. But even with that explanation, I still felt a lingering sense of unease, even if my bedroom light was on. Under normal circumstances, a roommate should not just casually stroll into my private space. Stalked grabbed a fresh, damp towel. Her touch was surprisingly soft, contrasting sharply with her usual icy exterior. Leaving me utterly bewildered by her dual nature, and gently placed it over my burning forehead again. I probed again, "Then why did you suddenly decide to check on me?" Stalked's tone remained chilly, but for some reason, it carried a subtle hint of shyness. She retorted, "Can I just care about you? Do you have any more questions?" Saying that, she turned her head away, refusing to look at me. Yet, the tips of her ears flushed a faint shade of red. I was stunned. An indescribable flurry of emotions surged in my chest. I smiled somewhat sheepishly and whispered, "Stalked. Thank you." She did not reply. She merely let out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh and continued wiping the sweat from my brow. A delicate, subtle silence enveloped the room. From that moment on, neither of us uttered another word. When Lou Shermoya took me out to negotiate a partnership, we unexpectedly bumped into my university alumni, Yang Rambutan. Yang Rambutan majored in computer science. Rumor had it that he once bypassed the university's main firewall in under 3 minutes just to change his cafeteria meal plan. Back in college, he was known as a god-tier hacker. Everyone respectfully called him God. His hacking skills were phenomenally impressive. Once we finished discussing work, I turned to ask him, "Brother Yang, can network text messages be traced and cracked?" Yang Rambutan waved his hand dismissively, boasting, "That is a piece of cake. What exactly do you need to trace? Give me your phone, plug it into my laptop, and I will have it sorted in 2 minutes." I hesitated for a moment. There were other people present at the scene. Some of the text contents were extremely explicit. It was truly too embarrassing to expose them publicly. I hurriedly apologized, saying, "Brother Yang, I received those on my other phone. I did not bring it with me today. I will treat you to a meal some other time, and I will trouble you for your help then." Yang Rambutan nodded in agreement. "Sure, no problem." I kept fidgeting with my hands, regretting that I had just missed a golden opportunity to finally unmask my tormentor. On our way back, Lou Shermoya asked me with a touch of hesitation, "Funyuzu, is that Yang Rambutan guy truly reliable?" I nodded vehemently, explaining, "Boss Leo, you might not know this, but Yang Rambutan is a year older. He was a true legend back on campus. His hacking abilities are ridiculous powerful. Leo Shermoya looked thoughtful for a second. She let out a soft and then, clears throat, chuckled, saying, I actually asked a friend to investigate this matter for you a while ago. There should be a result very soon. The very next day, Lu Charoya called me and said, Fong Yuzu, I found out who has been sending you those messages. I asked urgently, who is it? She explained, those numbers were routed through a virtual operator. It was quite difficult to trace, but my friend still managed to track it down. It was the cleaning lady who works in your apartment building. She forwarded a low-resolution file directly to my chat, the notification pinging loudly in the dead silence of my office. As she spoke, she sent over a photo of the cleaning lady. The woman in the picture looked to be in her 30s. She had a round face and a somewhat stout, plump figure. Her complexion was dull and shallow. She looked incredibly ordinary and unremarkable. I was in sheer disbelief. I asked, Boss Lu, is it really her? Leo Charamoya's tone was unwavering. Yes, it is her. The cleaning lady confessed to everything herself. Let us meet her face to face. I arrived at the designated meeting spot. The cleaning lady was sitting directly across from me, staring at me intensely without blinking with a bizarre smile plastered across her face. The mere thought of being secretly ogled by someone like her every single day made a wave of intense nausea wash over me. She confessed to frequently using binoculars to spy on my bedroom from the roof of the opposite building. Because I rented a unit on the top floor, it provided the perfect unobstructed line of sight for anyone willing to brave the chilly winds up on that roof. Because I rented a unit on the top floor from the top of that adjacent building, she could indeed get a clear view of everything happening in my room. Furthermore, she admitted to physically stalking me, which explained why she knew my daily routine like the back of her hand. The plot armor is strong, but the twist is incredibly weak. 0 per 10 for the villain reveal. I delivered a stern warning to her. She apologized profusely and repeatedly, claiming that she simply had a massive crush on me and only wanted to play a harmless joke, insisting there was no malicious intent. Shortly after that confrontation, she resigned from her job and moved away. From that day onward, those terrifying, blood-curdling text messages genuinely never appeared again. I gradually let my guard down and my life slowly returned to its normal, peaceful track. However, recently I have been feeling deeply troubled again. I can clearly sense that both Shin Kawano and Bis Salak have begun frequently finding random excuses to pester me and stick around. She has been texting me late at night under the guise of work, asking overly personal questions that make the hairs on my arms stand up. Even Lu Charamoya often finds various pretexts to make me work overtime many times. The tasks are clearly things that could easily wait until the next day or take the work home to finish. Yet, she insisted that I stay at the office and keep her company during overtime. This resulted in me working late into the night every time. And upon returning to my neighborhood, I would inevitably bump into Shin Kawano waiting for me. Shin Kawano would grumble a few words of complaint, then effortlessly wrap her arms around my arm and escort me back into my building. And after I entered my apartment, I would always see Bis Salak sitting on the sofa as if she was waiting for me on purpose. At these times, her complexion was often rather gloomy, and the words she spoke always carried a tone of deep resentment. Whenever the weekend arrived, my situation became even more tragically unbearable. Lu Charamoya would ask me out to discuss business. Shin Kawano would drag me out to accompany her on playful outings. She would tug at my sleeves with those wide, innocent eyes that made it impossibly hard to say no despite my sheer exhaustion. While Bis Salak would find all sorts of excuses to make me stay at home, this feeling of being constantly pulled in different directions by them left me feeling suffocated and breathless. One day, Bis Salak went on a business trip. I finally seized the opportunity to go out for a stroll by myself. When I got tired of walking, I sat down in a cafe, listening to the music, taking a brief moment to rest. Right then, a delicate and charming figure sat down directly across from me. "Senior, why did not you call me when you came out?" Shin Kawano pouted her small lips. Her face was filled with utter dissatisfaction. A few people nearby heard her voice and successfully turned their gaze toward our table. Sure enough, I received a text message very quickly. "Brother, why are you drinking coffee with another woman? You are only allowed to drink coffee with me. Everything about you belongs to me. Stay away from that woman. She is an utter lunatic. Her web of lies is thicker than you realize. And if you get caught in it, I won't be able to save you from her madness. Do not let her deceive you. You love drinking coffee, do you? Why do not you try drinking blood instead? I will drain her blood for you to drink. How does that sound?" I swept my gaze across the cafe. There were not many people around, and I did not spot anyone suspicious. We sat there for another whole hour, ultimately yielding zero results. I was filled with immense guilt, feeling like I had just wasted Lucher Moya's precious time. Yet, she maintained a continuous smile, seeming to genuinely enjoy the time spent alone with me. After wrapping up the 2-day business trip during the twilight hours, I dragged my thoroughly exhausted body back home. Stepping into my bedroom, I collapsed face first onto the bed and drifted into a deep slumber almost instantly. In the middle of the night, I was abruptly jolted awake by a profound, inexplicable sense of dread. In my groggy state, I saw a blurred silhouette standing by my bed. My heart stalled in my chest as I tried to blink away the sleep, praying it was just sleep paralysis playing tricks on my tired brain. The figure looked exceptionally ghostly and eerie in the pitch-black room. I was instantly startled out of my wits. My body instinctively recoiled, breaking out in a cold, terrified sweat. Did that stalker actually break into my bedroom? Home security really is just a suggestion in this apartment. What on earth did she want at this ungodly hour? I widened my eyes in pure terror, struggling to make out who it was. Once my vision cleared and I realized the intruder was Bis Salik, I could not help but exclaim, "Bis Salik, what are you doing in my bedroom?" Bis Salik's expression remained as frosty as ever, showing no trace of panic whatsoever. She quietly placed a damp towel on my forehead and said in a calm, slightly lazy voice, "You have a fever. I am here to take care of you." I subconsciously reached up to touch my forehead. It was burning hot. My entire body felt weak and limber. I could not muster an ounce of strength. I let out a heavy sigh of relief and lay back down on the bed. I kept staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how the coldest person in the apartment suddenly became my midnight nurse. But internally, my confusion only multiplied. Although we were roommates, we slept in entirely separate bedrooms. How could she possibly know I was running a fever in the dead of night, and even come all the way into my room? Could it be that she was the one relentlessly monitoring and secretly spying on me all along? She seemed to effortlessly see right through my thoughts. She spoke softly, "Stop making wild guesses. I got up to use the bathroom and noticed your room had its lights on, so I came in to check. I did not expect you to be sick." I mumbled to myself. My heart calmed down just a fraction. Perhaps I was just too exhausted last night and forgot to switch off the light before crashing. But even with that explanation, I still felt a lingering sense of unease, even if my bedroom light was on. Under normal circumstances, a roommate should not just casually stroll into my private space. Bis Salik grabbed a fresh, damp towel. Her touch was surprisingly soft, contrasting sharply with her usual icy exterior. Leaving me utterly bewildered by her dual nature, and gently placed it over my burning forehead again. I probed again, "Then why did you suddenly decide to check on me?" Bis Salik's tone remained chilly, but for some reason, it carried a subtle hint of shyness. She retorted, "Can I just care about you? Do you have any more questions?" Saying that, she turned her head away, refusing to look at me. Yet, the tips of her ears flushed a faint shade of red. I was stunned. An indescribable flurry of emotions surged in my chest. I smiled somewhat sheepishly and whispered, "Bis Salik. Thank you." She did not reply. She merely let out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh and continued wiping the sweat from my brow. A delicate, subtle silence enveloped the room. From that moment on, neither of us uttered another word. When Lucher Moya took me out to negotiate a partnership, we unexpectedly bumped into my university alumni, Yang Rambutan. Yang Rambutan majored in computer science. Rumor had it that he once bypassed the university's main firewall in under 3 minutes just to change his cafeteria meal plan. Back in college, he was known as a god-tier hacker. Everyone respectfully called him God. His hacking skills were phenomenally impressive. Once we finished discussing work, I turned to ask him, "Brother Yang, can network text messages be traced and cracked?" Yang Rambutan waved his hand dismissively, boasting, "That is a piece of cake. What exactly do you need to trace? Give me your phone, plug it into my laptop, and I will have it sorted in 2 minutes." I hesitated for a moment. There were other people present at the scene. Some of the text contents were extremely explicit. It was truly too embarrassing to expose them publicly. I hurriedly apologized, saying, "Brother Yang, I received those on my other phone. I did not bring it with me today. I will treat you to a meal some other time, and I will trouble you for your help then." Yang Rambutan nodded in agreement. "Sure, no problem." I kept fidgeting with my hands, regretting that I had just missed a golden opportunity to finally unmask my tormentor. On our way back, Lu Shermoya asked me with a touch of hesitation, "Fun Yuzu, is that young Rambutan guy truly reliable?" I nodded vehemently, explaining, "Boss Leo, you might not know this, but Yang Rambutan is a year older. He was a true legend back on campus. His hacking abilities are ridiculous powerful." Leo Shermoya looked thoughtful for a second. She let out a soft and then, clears throat, chuckled, saying, "I actually asked a friend to investigate this matter for you a while ago. There should be a result very soon." The very next day, Lu Charoya called me and said, "Fong Yuzu, I found out who has been sending you those messages." I asked urgently, "Who is it?" She explained, "Those numbers were routed through a virtual operator. It was quite difficult to trace, but my friend still managed to track it down. It was the cleaning lady who works in your apartment building." She forwarded a low-resolution file directly to my chat, the notification pinging loudly in the dead silence of my office. As she spoke, she sent over a photo of the cleaning lady. The woman in the picture looked to be in her 30s. She had a round face and a somewhat stout, plump figure. Her complexion was dull and shallow. She looked incredibly ordinary and unremarkable. I was in sheer disbelief. I asked, "Boss Lu, is it really her?" Leo Charamoya's tone was unwavering. "Yes, it is her. The cleaning lady confessed to everything herself. Let us meet her face to face." I arrived at the designated meeting spot. The cleaning lady was sitting directly across from me, staring at me intensely without blinking with a bizarre smile plastered across her face. The mere thought of being secretly ogled by someone like her every single day made a wave of intense nausea wash over me. She confessed to frequently using binoculars to spy on my bedroom from the roof of the opposite building. Because I rented a unit on the top floor, it provided the perfect unobstructed line of sight for anyone willing to brave the chilly winds up on that roof. Because I rented a unit on the top floor from the top of that adjacent building, she could indeed get a clear view of everything happening in my room. Furthermore, she admitted to physically stalking me, which explained why she knew my daily routine like the back of her hand. The plot armor is strong, but the twist is incredibly weak. 0 per 10 for the villain reveal. I delivered a stern warning to her. She apologized profusely and repeatedly, claiming that she simply had a massive crush on me and only wanted to play a harmless joke, insisting there was no malicious intent. Shortly after that confrontation, she resigned from her job and moved away. From that day onward, those terrifying, blood-curdling text messages genuinely never appeared again. I gradually let my guard down and my life slowly returned to its normal, peaceful track. However, recently I have been feeling deeply troubled again. I can clearly sense that both Shin Kawano and Bis Salak have begun frequently finding random excuses to pester me and stick around. She has been texting me late at night under the guise of work, asking overly personal questions that make the hairs on my arms stand up. Even Lu Charamoya often finds various pretexts to make me work overtime many times. The tasks are clearly things that could easily wait until the next day or take the work home to finish. Yet, she insisted that I stay at the office and keep her company during overtime. This resulted in me working late into the night every time. And upon returning to my neighborhood, I would inevitably bump into Shin Kawano waiting for me. Shin Kawano would grumble a few words of complaint, then effortlessly wrap her arms around my arm and escort me back into my building. And after I entered my apartment, I would always see Bis Salak sitting on the sofa as if she was waiting for me on purpose. At these times, her complexion was often rather gloomy, and the words she spoke always carried a tone of deep resentment. Whenever the weekend arrived, my situation became even more tragically unbearable. Lu Charamoya would ask me out to discuss business. Shin Kawano would drag me out to accompany her on playful outings. She would tug at my sleeves with those wide, innocent eyes that made it impossibly hard to say no despite my sheer exhaustion. While Bis Salak would find all sorts of excuses to make me stay at home, this feeling of being constantly pulled in different directions by them left me feeling suffocated and breathless. One day, Bis Salak went on a business trip. I finally seized the opportunity to go out for a stroll by myself. When I got tired of walking, I sat down in a cafe, listening to the music, taking a brief moment to rest. Right then, a delicate and charming figure sat down directly across from me. "Senior, why did not you call me when you came out?" Shin Kawano pouted her small lips. Her face was filled with utter dissatisfaction. A few people nearby heard her voice and successfully turned their gaze toward our table. Shin Kawano's voice was remarkably sweet, and she was exceptionally beautiful. Her entire being radiated a lively, enchanting aura. The soft sunlight catching her hair made her look like an idol shooting a commercial right in the middle of this ordinary coffee shop, instantly attracting quite a few envious glances. I smiled helplessly and said, "I just came out to get some fresh air." Shin Kawano's eyes sparkled with stars. She smiled and said, "You have to invite me next time. I want to stay by your side at all times." I massaged my temples and gave a perfunctory nod. "All right." A short while later, Shin Kawano went to the restroom. I stared at the phone she had left on the table. The screen suddenly lit up and then it lit up again. An inexplicable sensation surged into my heart as if possessed by a ghost. I walked over to the opposite side and picked up her phone, only to see a WeChat message glaring back at me. My blood ran cold as the text preview displayed on the lock screen shattered every illusion of safety I had left in this world. "Who said brother can only be yours?" Seeing the word brother, my heart began to pound frantically. Could it be? The question hovered relentlessly in my mind. I subconsciously grabbed her phone. First, I entered her birthday password incorrectly. Next, I tentatively entered my own birthday. To my astonishment, the phone actually unlocked. Shin Kawano actually used my birthday as her password. I opened WeChat and saw a group chat named Loving Sisters United. There were 3 people inside, namely Luchara Moya, Bis Salik, and Shin Kawano. The screen displayed their conversation from just a few minutes ago. The chaotic barrage of text bubbles painted a horrifying picture of possessiveness that made my stomach churn violently. Shin Kawano, brother treated me to coffee. Brother loves me so much. He can only belong to me. The rest of you should just give up. Luchara Moya, who said brother can only be yours. That is my husband. Bis Salik, you 2 idiots. Since when did my baby become yours? My fingers could not help but tremble. I directly tapped into the chat history. Scrolling back to dates from several months ago. Bis Salik. Wearing red underwear just like me. This is called matching couple outfits. Understand? Shin Kawano. Brother and I agreed on this beforehand. We both wore red today. We are the ones wearing matching outfits. I practically felt my soul leave my body. Realizing these lunatics had been comparing notes on my undergarments for months. Luchara Moya. So what if you wear matching clothes? My husband only has eyes for me. He only looks at me. Bis Salik. 3 meals a day, for seasons a year. He only shares them with me. Shin Kawano, stop making it sound so romantic. Brother is just your roommate. He is mine. Luchara Moya, that is my husband. Can you 2 do something productive for once? Luchara Moya, I was bored this weekend, so I came to watch my husband play basketball. My husband's posture is so handsome. Shin Kawano, brother is indeed handsome, but brother's water tastes even sweeter. Bis Salik, go die all of you. Shin Kawano, brother went on a date with me. Her words were dripped with such delusional triumph, making my previous memories of the amusement park feel tainted and vile. He took me to my favorite amusement park. Brother even bought me ice cream and ate from the exact same cone as me. An indirect kiss. He spoils me so much. Luchara Moya, stop dreaming. Ah, yes. The classic Yandere group chat where the grand prize is a clueless dude with 0 survival instincts. My husband would never eat your leftovers. Do you not want to live anymore? Bis Salik. Baby only has me in his heart. He specially made braised pork just for me. His silhouette standing in the kitchen was super alluring. Shin Kawano. Do not you hate eating braised pork the most? It seems brother does not love you that much after all. He does not even know your preferences. Luchara Moya. So hilarious. Bis Salik. Get lost. Luchara Moya. My husband went swimming with me. She typed that out while I was actually saving her from drowning. Turning a life or death moment into a sick romantic fantasy. He even held me tightly in his arms. His abs are phenomenal. Bis Salik, do you want to die? Luchara Moya. My husband took the initiative to ask me out. Even the coffee is in the shape of his love for me. Seeing all of this, my heart felt like it had been viciously whipped. I almost could not catch my breath. That day, Luchara Moya even suggested we pretend to be together to lure that stalker out. It turns out I was the only idiot being kept in the dark the whole time. I continued scrolling down. Luchara Moya, you all better behave from now on. Stop sending those harassing messages to my husband. He hired a hacker and is on the verge of exposing you all. The audacity of her pretending to protect me while actively organizing the very torment that was destroying my sanity was staggering. Considering you both call me sister, I will find a scapegoat for you. Stay away from my husband from now on. Bis Salak, who called you sister? Did not you send those messages yourself too? Shen Kawano. If you stay away from my brother, I will call you sister. Otherwise, no deal. At this moment, Shin Kawano emerged from the restroom. Seeing me holding her phone, she froze for a second, then walked over with quick strides. She snatched the phone away and asked, "Senior, why are you looking at my phone?" I stared at her with a complex gaze. I said, "Shin Kawano, are there a lot of things you are hiding from me?" Shin Kawano lowered her head. A flash of panic swept across her eyes. She murmured, "Senior, I am not. I just like you way too much." I let out a heavy sigh. My heart was brimming with pure exhaustion. I slowly raised my head, casting my gaze out the window. The sunlight poured down without reservation, falling softly upon Shin Kawano's silky hair, reflecting a faint, dreamlike halo of light. This should have been a picturesque, beautiful scene. Yet at this moment, it felt unspeakably ironic. After remaining silent for several seconds, I tried my best to keep my voice steady. I clenched my jaw tightly, suppressing the urge to scream in the middle of the cafe as I forced myself to maintain a shred of dignity. Sounding as steady as possible, I spoke slowly. "Shin Kawano, I want to hear the truth. Tell me everything you know. Every single detail without skipping a beat." Her eyes darted around nervously. She hesitated for quite a while before finally giving a slight nod. "So Lu Charamoya, Bis Salak, and you three have known each other all along?" I pressed for an answer, my voice involuntarily rising a few pitches. Shin Kawano bit her lip guiltily. She gave a gentle nod, speaking in a voice so small it was almost inaudible. She looked down at her lap, twiddling her thumbs like a child caught stealing candy rather than a sociopath ruining a man's life. "We are cousins. Our mothers are biological sisters." Hearing this, a sudden realization hit me. No wonder all three of them possessed such tall figures and outstanding beauty. It turns out they inherited the same excellent genes. Those harassing texts were sent by you, were not they? I continued my interrogation, locking my gaze tightly onto her. Shin Kawano looked up, staring at me with a pitiful expression. Her eyes were filled with remorse. She nodded her head once again. Lu Charamoya and Bis Salak were also involved. I pressed further, a hint of fury seeping into my voice. Shin Kawano hesitated for a second, then nodded helplessly once more. "Yes, I am sorry." The apology sounded hollow, echoing in my ears like a cruel joke that only deepened the gaping wound in my trust. "Brother, I just love you too much since you already know everything." Then maybe, I hastily interrupted her. "Stop talking. Just let me process this chaotic mess first." A brief moment later, I furrowed my brows and questioned, "So, you purposely rented an apartment in the building opposite mine, just so you could spy on my life through binoculars?" The sheer thought that my every single move was captured in her sight instantly ignited my rage. It was impossible to suppress. Renting an entire apartment solely to stalk someone is peak dedication. She deserves a solid plus in Yandere economics. However, as Shin Kawano observed my furious demeanor, not only was she unbothered by fear, but a borderline fanatical gleam actually flickered in her eyes. She said in an intoxicated tone, "Brother, you look incredibly handsome when you are angry. Could you be a little fiercer for me?" I was thoroughly speechless. I did not want to entangle myself with her any longer. I stood up abruptly and took large strides out of the cafe. Seeing this, Shin Kawano immediately chased after me, hugging my arm tightly, whining coquettishly. "Brother, do not walk so fast. Wait for me. I can barely keep up." I forcefully shook my arm, attempting to break free from her grasp, but she clung on even tighter, chirping incessantly all along the way. My head felt like it was buzzing loudly. The sound of her sweet voice, which I used to find endearing, now grated against my eardrums like a screeching alarm, warning me of impending doom. The truth had been fully revealed. It turned out those blood-curdling messages were the joint masterpiece of those three women. That cleaning lady was nothing more than a scapegoat they had procured. After learning this truth, my inner turmoil could not settle for a long time. Lu Charamoya, who appeared gentle and kind on a daily basis, was actually so scheming and manipulative behind the scenes. The usually aloof and tranquil Bisalak also harbored such a deranged side. All of this made me shudder in horror. Carrying a heavily burdened heart, I arrived at the company. I had made up my mind to resign. Facing Lou Charamoya every single day and having to pretend I did not know the vile depths of her twisted affection while taking orders from her was simply a psychological torture I refused to endure. And thinking about her twisted intentions, I truly could not focus on my work in peace. Changing my environment might be the best choice for me. I walked into the conference room. It was just me and Lou Charamoya inside. I hesitated for a long time before mustering the courage to speak. Boss Lou, lately I have been feeling that this job is not quite suitable for me, so I would like to resign. Hearing this, Lou Charamoya's face was filled with shock as she said, Fang Yuzu, the development prospects for your position are incredibly bright. Once you finish these current projects, a promotion is practically guaranteed. Why do you suddenly want to resign? I shook my head. I refused to look her in the eye, afraid that if I met her gaze, I would expose the simmering disgust boiling right beneath the surface of my polite facade, explaining, it is not an issue with the work. It is for personal reasons. Lou Charamoya's expression changed instantly, but very quickly, she squeezed out a faint smile and asked, Fang Yuzu, you know everything, do not you? I remained silent for a moment and nodded. She let out a soft sigh, slowly walking up to my side, whispering into my ear, it is good that you know that gives you all the more reason to stay here. I instinctively took a step backward, rejecting her. I think it is best if we just leave it at this. Lou Charamoya's voice suddenly choked up. Why did I do something wrong to make you hate me? I hurriedly shook my head. No, Boss Lou, you are a very nice person. Before I could even finish my sentence, she suddenly reached out and hugged my neck. Such intimate physical contact made me feel utterly uncomfortable all over. I frantically pushed her away, reminding her, Boss Leo, there are security cameras in here. Lou Charamoya glanced dismissively at the camera, saying nonchalantly, my family owns this entire company. What is there to be afraid of? Fang Yuzu, do you know when you joined this company after graduation, I specifically became your manager just so I could get close to you? Hearing this, enlightenment struck me. The puzzle pieces snapped together, revealing a horrifying picture where my entire career trajectory had been manipulated by her obsessive design. No wonder the company boss shared her surname. Lou Charamoya continued, I love you. If you do not want to work here, the Lou Group has other companies under its umbrella. I can still accompany you every single day. Okay. Her voice was soft, yet it carried an undertone that refused to be rejected. I was just about to decline when she cut me off. I know. It must be my two younger cousins. They are too immature. Always pestering you. How about this? We find a place where nobody knows us. Just the two of us. Where they can never find us again? All right, husband. Her eyes brimming with anticipation. I was repulsed yet fearful of provoking her. I quickly masked my horror with a neutral expression, realizing that directly rejecting a wealthy psychopath in her own building was a terrible survival strategy. I could only brush her off. Boss Lou, please give me some time to think about it first. Returning to the rental apartment, I impatiently began packing my luggage, planning to secretly flee this den of madness. He is finally packing his bags. It took him way too long to realize the immense power of simply running away. The actions of these three sisters were just too insane. If I did not leave soon, I was afraid they would genuinely drive me crazy. I frantically shoved my clothes into the suitcase in a flurry. I grabbed the handle and headed for the door. While passing through the living room, I noticed that Bisalak's bedroom door was left slightly ajar. She was on a business trip these past few days. Logically, she should not be at home. Why was the door unlocked? An intense surge of curiosity compelled me to step forward. I had always suspected that my missing underwear. The lingering doubt had gnawed at the back of my mind, and standing in front of her half-open door felt like standing at the threshold of Pandora's box. Had something to do with her. At this very moment, that doubt felt like kitten claws scratching away at my heart. I cautiously pushed the door open. This was the very first time I had stepped foot into her bedroom. The room was impeccably clean and tidy, permeated with a faint girlish fragrance. Approaching the bedside, I saw on the small nightstand a photo frame on display. The person in the frame was actually me. My picture had been meticulously placed by her bed. Did she fall asleep staring at my face every single night? My heart violently sank. A heavy block of ice settled in the pit of my stomach as my eyes scanned the pristine, seemingly innocent room for more signs of her derangement. An ominous premonition swelled within my chest. I subconsciously reached under her pillow to feel around. My fingers brushed against something soft. My heart leaped in alarm, lifting the pillow. There it was, my long-lost blue underwear. In an instant, the entire world spun around me. It was unfathomable that Bisalik, who usually seemed as noble and unapproachable as a goddess, would actually commit such a lunatic act, sniffing my underwear to fall asleep every night. Just as I was paralyzed by sheer shock, a sudden flurry of footsteps echoed from outside the door. My heart leaped straight into my throat. Bisalik had returned. What was I supposed to do? Panic hijacked my nervous system, leaving me stranded in the middle of her bedroom like a deer caught in the blinding headlights of a speeding truck. I had nowhere to hide. In a blind panic, I dove straight into her ensuite bathroom. I hid inside, not even daring to breathe loudly, nervously listening to the movements outside. I only heard a loud click. The bedroom door was locked. I surveyed my surroundings and noticed a transparent bottle on the sink. It appeared to be filled with body wash. I picked it up and took a sniff. The familiar scent of lemon mixed with sandalwood assaulted my senses. There was no mistake. This was my body wash. So, the person stealing my body wash truly was Bisalik. The horrifying realization that she wanted to smell exactly like me made the hair on the back of my neck stand up in pure revulsion. Suddenly, the bathroom door was forcefully shoved open. "Baby, what are you doing here?" Bisalik's voice rang out. It remained frosty, yet it carried an added trace of poorly concealed excitement. I stared at her in utter terror, stuttering. She stepped closer, step by step, seeing the bottle of body wash in my hand. A bizarre twisted smile curved the corners of her mouth. "You know everything now, do not you?" I frantically set the bottle down, attempting to rush past her. But the moment I stepped into the bedroom, she grabbed me fiercely, her body pressed tightly against mine. I was forced to retreat step by step. My boots slipped slightly on her polished hardwood floor, as her relentless advance left me with zero room to maneuver or escape until my back hit the solid wall. "Since you have entered my room, do not even think about leaving. You belong to me." Bisalik murmured in a low voice and subsequently crashed her lips onto mine. My mind entirely blanked out. My breathing grew rapid. My body trembled uncontrollably. "Bisalik, let me go." I struggled as I yelled, but she wrapped both her arms tightly around my neck and issued a voice command to the smart speaker on the desk. "Close the curtains." In a flash, the room was plunged into darkness. While aggressively kissing me, she tangled her fingers into my hair, her grip unyielding and desperate, as if she was trying to fuse my soul permanently into hers. Bisalik continuously whispered into my ear. "Darling, I have waited for you for so long. Why did it take you until now to realize my feelings? I fell in love with you back in university. Do you have any idea how much I love you? I will undoubtedly have you. You are mine. Nobody else can snatch you away. If you dare to like anyone else, I will slaughter them all." I summoned every ounce of my strength and finally shoved her away, screaming, "Bisalik, calm down." But Bisalik nearly pinched my jaw. A sinister, vicious glint revealed itself in her eyes. "So, the ones you like are those two, is it Lou Charamoya or is it Shinkawano?" I shook my head vigorously, stating, "It is neither of them." She really triggered the final boss battle without manually saving his game progress first. "I do not like anyone." Bisalik stared at me intensely for a good while, then abruptly began to laugh. "That is good. If it were anyone else, I would have eliminated them a long time ago. But considering they are my cousins, I will spare their lives for now." I cursed inwardly to myself, deeply regretting why I had been so fatally curious, insisting on entering her bedroom. Now look at this mess. I was utterly trapped. That night, I was hopelessly pinned down by Bisalik. She practically coiled around me like a python. Her suffocating embrace ensuring that even a twitch of a muscle would instantly alert her. Unable to move an inch. The next day, exploiting a moment when her guard slightly dropped, I dashed out of the door with total reckless abandon. Not even bothering to grab my luggage. The moment I stepped outside, my phone began vibrating like crazy. Message after message flooded in like cannonballs. "Brother, do you not want me anymore? Where did you go, husband? We agreed to fly far away together. Why did you run away on your own, baby? Since you dared to run, you better obediently come back. Otherwise, you will pay a heavy price. Husband, if you do not want to leave, you can come back to work. Your attendance will be counted as a business trip and your salary will be paid as usual. Even in the midst of a psychotic breakdown, corporate HR attendance policies must be strictly adhered to naturally. Hurry back, brother. I miss you so much when I can't see you. The binoculars are useless now, baby. You are in for a miserable time when I catch you. I was wrong. Please come back quickly. Staring at these messages, my scalp turned entirely numb, and my footsteps quickened frantically. I only wanted to get as far away from them as physically possible. Yet, their looming silhouettes haunted my mind like relentless specters, impossible to shake off. I fled the apartment complex in blind panic, like a startled bird, not daring to pause for even a split second. The bustling noise of the streets meant nothing to me now. My mind was wholly consumed by how to escape this. I kept frantically glancing over my shoulder, terrified that any random pedestrian in a coat might suddenly reveal a familiar, deranged smile, an inescapable, maddening obsession. I haphazardly hopped onto a random public bus, curling myself up in the far corner of the back row, desperately attempting to conceal my presence. Through the smudged window glass, the city streetscape flashed by rapidly like a slideshow. However, my chaotic thoughts had been tangled into a horrific knot by those three women. I never could have imagined that these women who seemingly never interacted in daily life, each with wildly different personalities, would actually unite to express their twisted affection in such a spine-chilling, horrifying manner. My phone was still vibrating relentlessly in my pocket. I bluntly powered it down entirely. The abrupt silence of the deactivated device brought a small measure of peace, though the dread still pounded heavily in my chest. Out of sight, out of mind. But those words, dripping with possessiveness and threats, felt as if they had been branded into my brain, utterly indelible. I began to trace back every single interaction since the day I met them. Those seemingly mundane ordinary moments now appeared to be laced with hidden sinister agendas. The overtime work deliberately scheduled by Lou Charamoya. The constant shadowy trailing by Shin Kawano. The bizarre fleeting glances occasionally cast by Bis Salik. It turned out they were all just threads meticulously woven into their inescapable web of obsession. The bus finally arrived at a stop. I disembarked numbly. The biting wind slapped my face, forcing me to register my surroundings as I stumbled onto the concrete pavement like a hollow shell of a man. Finding myself in an entirely unfamiliar neighborhood, surrounded by towering office buildings and rushing pedestrians, nobody had a clue what kind of living nightmare I was enduring. I walked into a tiny, rundown diner and ordered the absolute cheapest meal combo on the menu, but the food tasted like dry cardboard in my mouth. The television in the diner was broadcasting the news. The audio buzzed noisily in my ears, yet it failed to capture my attention. Suddenly, a breaking news alert interrupted the broadcast and the voices of Lou Charamoya, Shin Kawano, and Bis Salik rang out from the screen. The news anchor spoke with a stern expression. Recently, our city has witnessed multiple cases of stalking and harassment. Following a thorough investigation, the police discovered that the three suspects are related by blood. They have subjected a single male to months of deranged pursuit and surveillance. Currently, the authorities have successfully pinpointed the suspect's location and are actively engaged in a full-scale manhunt. I stared blankly at the screen, my eyes wide open. A complex swirl of emotions churned within my heart. On one hand, I felt a sliver of relief that I was about to be freed from their grasp. On the other hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow and profound bewilderment regarding their actions. My chest tightened painfully as the memories of their twisted affections clashed violently with the harsh reality of them becoming wanted fugitives. Before I could even gather my chaotic thoughts, the diner's door was shoved open with immense force. Several police officers barged inside. Their sharp gazes swiftly swept across every patron in the establishment. Then they marched directly toward my table. "You must be Fong Yuzu. Come with us." The lead officer's tone left no room for dispute. My initial instinct was to resist, but meeting the officer's authoritative gaze, I relinquished any thought of struggling. I knew this absurd farce was finally drawing to a close. Regardless of what the outcome might be, I had to face it head-on. I slowly stood up from the creaky plastic chair, letting out a long shuddering breath. As the weight of the past few months seemed to physically press down on my shoulders. Inside the police precinct, I recounted the entire sequence of events in excruciating detail to the authorities. They diligently documented my statement, furrowing their brows periodically as the story unfolded. When I brought up the disturbing text messages, the stolen underwear, and the myriad details of being constantly watched, the officer's expressions turned increasingly grave. We deeply sympathize with what you have endured. The actions of those 3 suspects have severely violated the law. One of the officers stated firmly, "We will apprehend them and bring them to justice as soon as possible." To provide you with proper closure, however, the situation took an entirely unexpected twist. Just when I thought I could finally sleep with both eyes closed, destiny decided to throw the most absurd curveball into my already shattered life. A few days later, the police contacted me once more, requesting my presence at the station. In the precinct's reception room, I laid eyes on Lou Charamoya, Shin Kawano, and Bis Salik. They appeared rather haggard and exhausted. Yet, their eyes revealed an unwavering determination. Lou Charamoya was the first to speak. "Fang Yuzu, we know our previous actions terrified you. We truly regret what we did. During our time here at the police station, we have deeply reflected on our grievous mistakes. We never should have expressed our love in such an extreme manner." Her usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled, and the vulnerability in her voice was a stark contrast to the imposing corporate boss I used to know. Shin Kawano also chimed in anxiously. "Brother, we just loved you so much that we lost all our sanity. We promise we will never do anything like that again. Could you please give us one more chance?" Bis Salik stepped forward, gently taking hold of my hand. Her voice was choked with emotion. "Baby, I know my past behavior was incredibly unhinged, but that was only because I cared about you too much. I am willing to change for you as long as you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Gazing at their seemingly sincere expressions, my resolve began to waver. Truth be told, during the time I spent with them, how could I have not developed feelings for them as well? The shared meals, the lingering touches, and the undeniable chemistry, we had formed a tangled web in my heart that I could not simply cut away. It was merely their extreme actions that have plunged me into terror and confusion. An officer chimed in at this moment through our mediation and counseling sessions. "They have realized the gravity of their mistakes. Judging from the current circumstances, they genuinely want to make amends. You might want to consider whether you are willing to give them an opportunity." I fell into deep thought. After a long pause, I raised my head, looking into their hopeful, anticipating eyes. I spoke slowly. "I am willing to give you all one more chance, but you must promise me there will be 0 extreme behaviors from now on." I looked at each of them pointedly, ensuring that my boundaries were set in stone and that this fragile new beginning was not just another toxic trap. We need to be entirely honest and open with one another. Upon hearing my verdict, brilliant smiles instantly bloomed across their faces. Tears of joy shimmered in their eyes. Lou Charamoya threw her arms around me excitedly. Shin Kawano pressed herself tightly against my side while Bis Salik tenderly caressed my cheek. From that day forward, our relationship underwent a delicate, beautiful transformation. Lou Charamoya no longer orchestrated unnecessary overtime. Instead, she provided me with greater support and encouragement in my career. Shin Kawano remained bubbly and adorable, but she stopped pestering me the way she used to and learned to respect my personal space. She would now patiently wait for me to text her first, her eyes lighting up with pure joy rather than obsessive frenzy whenever we met. Bis Salik gradually discarded her icy, unapproachable facade as well, becoming far more gentle and considerate. We spent countless wonderful moments together. On weekends, we would head to the amusement park as a group, laughing and playing just like any ordinary couples. In the evenings, we would gather around the dining table, sharing amusing anecdotes from our days. Occasionally, we would even go catch a movie together, holding hands and simply relishing in each other's companionship. Wait, so the police effectively act as a matchmaking service for a victim and his 3 criminal stalkers to form a polyamorous harem. This script's logic has officially left the chat.